you're in a good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, we will be identifying the differences between enabling and genuinely helping someone else. Am I enabling this person, or am I actually helping them? This is a really tough thing to understand, because many of us don't realize that we're actually enabling somebody, and enabling is something that is not healthy. We can help somebody out of genuine help, to really care about them, to help them through a situation or a problem, to help them identify certain things, to help them be able to work through certain things. But at what point does helping become enabling? And what I found is that when we help somebody, there's that genuine care, there's that genuine respect, it's that good feeling, and that feeling is good, and it's circular, and it's even, and it works. But I found that when we enable, things begin to change. And when we enable, sometimes what happens over a period of time is the exact opposite of what we want to happen. What happens is that person becomes resentful and angry toward us. And it seems that the stakes keep getting higher. They want more and more, and they're doing less and less to get it. It's interesting because many of us are enabling people under the guise of helping them. And sometimes it can be because of the way we feel. Remember, everything has two sides to it when we're dealing with two people. Their side and our side. And somewhere in the middle is what we have to look at. So in today's show, I'll be identifying the feelings of enabling, but I'll also be talking about when we understand when something is good, when we're actually helping someone, genuinely doing it, and it's actually helpful for them, and how to really know the difference, because we really need to put our finger on it. We need to understand what enabling is. We need to understand various examples of that and how that might be actually working in our own life, and how to understand that and begin to augment that. Because I've realized that when we enable people, we are not giving them value. When we enable people, we are not giving them the strength to do their own thing. When we enable them, we're actually taking away their power, even if they want us to, and we're not allowing them to stand up and do what they need to do. And I want to give you a good example first off in today's show. And I know that this might be an extreme example, but sometimes extreme examples do hit home. I remember years and years ago, I was helping out a friend of mine, and I didn't want to see them to hit rock bottom. And they were going through some extreme drug and alcohol use, and it had gotten very excessive. It was really extremely over the top. It had gotten extremely unhealthy, but I felt the need to continue to help. And I thought I was doing good. In the beginning, I thought I was doing good, and I was there, and I was helpful, I thought. And I just didn't want to see them hit rock bottom. I didn't want to see them on the streets. I didn't want to see them with nothing. And so I kept providing, offering money, or, allowing them to stay, or whatever it needed to happen. But I didn't realize that as that began, it began of the goodness of what I wanted to do, but that began to augment and change. And over a period of time, it turned into enablement. It turned into enabling this person to continue to live the life that they actually needed to let go of. And so my decision to try to stop them from hitting rock bottom actually continued to perpetrate their drug and alcohol addiction. And it actually made it worse, because instead of hitting rock bottom and eventually getting the help they need, they never hit rock bottom for, as I was enabling. And so I continued to enable, I continued to allow them to live that lifestyle. And unfortunately, it took so long for me to see that. And I remember there was a point in the situation where I realized what I was doing, and I realized that I was aiding and abetting in the situation, and it wasn't good. It wasn't a healthy situation. I was actually helping this person to continue on. Not that I thought that I was. There was a long period of time where I never dreamed that that's what I was doing, or I would have definitely stopped earlier. But I was enabling them to continue with their self-sabotage. And that's exactly what it is, whether it's drugs or alcohol whatever it looks like. I was enabling them and allowing them to continue with that lifestyle because I didn't want to see them hit rock bottom. I didn't want to see them on the streets. I didn't want to see them get hurt by a drug dealer that wanted their money. I didn't want to see that. And so I showed up and tried to help facilitate situations. I tried to provide. I would show up into situations that were very unsafe for me to try to help this other person out. And I didn't realize that each and every time I did that, I was setting the scene for that person to not make the changes they needed to make their life better. And, when you look at it from that perspective, it's hard because I look back at it first, it felt good to help somebody. But then I feel like there was a bit of ego that was involved because I was having to deal with these issues and I was having to show up at the right time and be in these places that were somewhat dangerous. Definitely have a lot of stories to tell, but those stories are not worth the pain and suffering, the financial burden that came on me from helping this person, and the mental and emotional anguish that came out of it as well. And I've realized that when we enable, a lot of times that's what happens. And sometimes we're unable to see that enabling, we're unable to see that because we have like a veil around that because we don't want to see that. We don't want to see that we're enabling. We don't want to see that because it doesn't feel that good. Helping somebody seems a lot better than enabling. We can enable somebody to not get a job. There's countless folks out there who, are dating someone or in a relationship with someone that doesn't want to go to work, doesn't want to have a job, not interested in working. And so you're footing the bill all the time. You're paying for everything, paying for their food, paying for them to live with you, paying for them to go out, paying for everything. And that does two things, right? You might feel good about it in the beginning because you're saving them. You're basically helping them live their life. You're allowing them to have a life that's possible, all that stuff. But at the same time, you're also enabling them to never want to get a job. Why would somebody want to go out and get a job if you're giving them money and taking care of them so that they don't have to work? That's interesting. And then the flip side of it is eventually you get to a point where you get resentful and angry, especially if you're somebody that has to work and you have to go to work and you have to take care of things. You may become resentful over time that this is actually taking place. And that is what is so challenging. And then over time, when you decide to change your tune and say, hey, I really think you should get a job. Have you thought about going out and getting some employment? That person gets very angry or they get very defensive or, why do I need to get a job? It hasn't been a problem so far. They find reasons and excuses for not getting jobs or not getting work. They come up with all these different reasons of why not. And I know that I've had some clients who, talk to me about the COVID situation where when COVID happened, their significant other or boyfriend or girlfriend decided to stop working altogether. And so they were, the breadwinner of the family, making all the money, not having any support. And they said, we thought it was going to go on for 6 months to a year. Well, it's continued on. And so some of those same folks are still unemployed, and we're pretty much behind all this. And they're still not wanting to get a job and they're still not interested in doing it. And what's happened is that the enablement and the placation has taken place where that other person feels as though they don't have to. There's also that entitlement factor, so you have to remember when we enable someone, we also make them feel entitled to it. It's almost like we're giving them this on a silver platter. They feel entitled to what they get. They feel entitled to that sort of situation. And entitlement is never a real positive thing. Entitlement is never something that helps somebody. When somebody's entitled, it creates a problem. It creates a havoc. And that begins to have a snowball effect on everything. And that's something that we really have to identify and definitely understand. And I feel like, a lot of times the helping starts, the helping, somebody needs help with their rent or somebody needs help with this or that or somebody needs to move in for free for a while, whatever it looks like. And that can be very helpful in the beginning and it can start in that manner. But over time, that help becomes enablement for that person to not move on their own to get what they need to do, whether that's a job or work to, empower themselves or whatever that looks like to get them to get on track with their own life. And that's hard. A lot of times we don't want to see it. A lot of times we have a lot of, feelings for that person. We care about that person. We want to see the best for that person. Some of you might be in romantic relationships with these people. You might be married to these people. They might be family. Okay. And so there's these different levels of emotion that can be very triggering, and it can cause us to continue to do what we don't need to do in the relationship. And so, in today's show, I just want you to start thinking about it. I want you to start analyzing, am I enabling anybody in my life right now? Okay, am I enabling anybody in my life right now? The flip coin, am I being enabled by anyone in my life right now? Is somebody enabling me to not do what I need to do? Is somebody enabling me to get off course? What does that look like? What does that enablement look like? And that's something that I really want us to think about. That's something that we need to really think about, because we can all be enabling somebody, but we can also be enabled by somebody else, and it can be various different types of things. We need to really think about it. We have various different types of things, where it's financial, whether there's something else that's being given. Whether it's, like the example with the drugs and alcohol, whether you're holding somebody from hitting rock bottom because you don't want to see it. Well, you might not want to see that, and that's not anything that anybody wants to see necessarily or wants somebody to experience. But who are we to say that that person's not supposed to go through that? I mean, there's millions and millions of success stories of people saying, hey, they hit rock bottom and then they woke up and they became this person where they help people all over, and they really help people to get off drugs and alcohol. We could be enabling the next person that could be doing that, but instead we're enabling them, continuing to allow them to be on drugs and alcohol, not allowing them to be at their highest good. And that's really the main crux of today's show, is that we have to really identify and reveal, why do we enable? Why do we enable? And I think there's a lot of reasons why we enable, and, why do we allow ourselves, to be enabled? Because there's reasons for that too. There's lots of different reasons, because it can be easier. We might be allowing other people to enable us because it's easier. Perhaps we don't have to do some things that we don't want to do. Perhaps there's some things that we don't want to do, and so that person's allowing us not to have to step up to the plate, not to have to do what we need to do to make our life where it needs to be at. We might also be enabling somebody on the flip-flop, right? Because it feels good to help them. We need a project. We need someone that we can take care of. We're missing out on something that large that's really super important. And that's something that you really want to think about. That's something that really is powerful to acknowledge, because it gives us a glimpse not only into maybe the person that we're enabling and understanding that, but it also gives us a glimpse into our reality. And the entitlement factor is a big deal here, because when we're dealing with somebody that we've enabled to the point that they become entitled, that's where we have a really big disconnect. That's where we have a super problem. And that's when it develops into a bigger problem, because the person expects you to do things and to keep doing things, even if it doesn't make sense anymore. And that's a huge piece of the puzzle. So stay tuned. I'm going to be talking more about enabling versus helping and how to know the difference. Here we go. So stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives. With me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. I'm back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. In today's show, I'm identifying the difference between enabling and helping, and how to know, are we genuinely helping somebody? Are we helping them altruistically? And are they accepting that altruistically in the light that they know that we're helping them and they're not entitled? Or are we, instead, has the helping moved into enabling? And over that process of enabling someone, they've become entitled to it. We've become resentful of it. We find ourselves in this cycle pattern of dealing with this person that's now connected to us, that can't move on, that doesn't want to move on. And we find ourselves hitting our head against the wall because they won't do something. They won't get clean and sober. They won't go get a job. They won't go get a place of their own. They won't move on. They won't go to school. They won't do whatever it is that they don't want to do, they are not doing. And in the process, we continue to give and give and give, but they're not changing. And this is a big thing that's happening all across the world, is that many of us have people in our lives that we're enabling, and we might be the people that are being enabled by these people. And so we have to really look at it from both angles. And what I was talking about right before the break was the entire concept of entitlement. You know, when somebody is being enabled over a period of time, they feel entitled to what they get. They feel entitled to their situation. They feel entitled to whatever that is, if it's money, if it's jewelry, if it's a place to live, if it's paying for all their bills, if it's paying for their drugs, if it's supplying them alcohol, whatever it looks like. That begins to be commonplace, and that begins to be what they expect, and that becomes entitlement. And so how do we know the difference? How do we know the difference? Am I enabling somebody, or am I genuinely helping them? I think one of the first things is that we feel good about it. We feel good about what we're doing, and sometimes that can be in the beginning of enablement. So we have to be very careful here because it's a slippery slope. But what I have found is that we do feel good about what we're doing as far as helping that person, and it feels right. It feels like the right thing to do. Now, again, sometimes enablement and enabling people might actually feel right, but over time, that feeling of right wanes and goes away because it's not really right. It's this veil that we've created to be able to continue with this type of reality to make ourselves feel better about that reality. But when you start pulling back the veil, you begin to see the reality. And I know that some of you are in thick with this, and I've been in thick with, enabling somebody and really, really, really in thick and not seeing it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to see it because I was doing it for my own reasons. I was doing it because I wanted that person to be around, or I was doing it to take care of that person. But there was also fundamentally, not wanting to see somebody go through something that you don't want them to see them go through. But in reality, we're stopping them from living their life. And that's what's so important, is that once we get in the way of somebody choosing what they want to choose, and we keep trying to put the mattress underneath them so they don't hit rock bottom, we keep trying to do this, we keep trying to interfere, that's when we're enabling. And what I've found is that when we do enable, people get very resentful, even though that's what they actually want, is they want you to give them the money, or they want you to do this or that. Even though you're doing it, they become really resentful of you, and they become resentful of the relationship. And this is really, really the cornerstone of the issue. It's like when people marry, rich folks, and they went out to meet this person, and they did this, and they married them, and all this stuff happened, and that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted. And they don't work, and they don't do these other things, and then eventually they get really resentful, and they say that this person's controlling, or this person's abusive. But that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted that, but they're not doing anything to change the control. So if the person is controlling the money, they're not doing anything to get their own job or to make their own money. So feasibly, it's something that has to be taken care of, that they can actually manage and do, but they are not doing. And that's something that we really want to talk about and investigate in today's podcast. So stay tuned, because Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I'm asking the question, am I enabling or genuinely helping someone? How to know the difference. And this is so important. Because when we are enabling someone, we are not doing them any good. When we are enabling someone, we're not doing them any service whatsoever. we're actually really hurting them, and we're allowing them to continue on their own self-sabotage. Did you hear what I'm saying? We're allowing them to continue on their own self-sabotage. We're allowing them to do this themselves. We become just as guilty as them, okay? And this is very important because we all have a tendency of wanting to be that savior. We got that ego boost sometimes too. We want to help, and some of it's just genuine help, but we really need to think about this because let's talk about some of the signs of enabling real quick. Just jump into that because if some of you might not go, well, what are some of the signs of enabling, Ashley? I'm thinking about that. Is this enabling or is this not enabling? One of the signs of enabling that I find is you do things for that person that they can actually do for themselves. So that's a big one. You actually find yourself doing something for that person, doing multiple somethings for that person that they could take care of on their own. They don't need you. And it's hard. You get up there and you take care of it. And, a lot of times we do it in the beginning, we take care of it. And eventually we just get tired of it. We worry, we have anxiety, we have stress about what they're doing. Are they doing the right thing? Are they doing the wrong thing? Are they getting in trouble? What's the situation? We make excuses for the other person's behavior. We make excuses for their poor choices. We make excuses for them if they put us in danger. We deny the problems. We minimize the problems. We minimize the issue. If somebody gets up and they're grabbing a drink at 8 a.m. in the morning, well, they must have had a hard night last night, maybe. Give the benefit of the doubt. They're doing it day after day. That's something to really be aware of. That's something to think about. That's something that's not probably that good. That's probably an indication of somebody having a drinking problem. Somebody waking up that early and starting to drink. So thinking about not trying to minimize that problem. If somebody's doing drugs, how much drugs are they doing? If somebody is having reckless behavior, that's not something to minimize. It's something to look at. A lot of times, too, we consistently put their needs before ours. And that creates havoc. That creates a lot of havoc and problems. And we begin to feel depleted, and we begin to feel resentment, and we begin to feel sadness. You feel sad, you feel anxious, you feel guilty if you don't help them. You also feel responsible for them. You feel responsible for what they do. Over time, you build up resentment toward them because they're not working as hard as you. They're not taking things as seriously as you. They kind of always get away with doing whatever they want to do. You're afraid to see them fail. You don't want them to have a hard life. Those are some big pieces of the puzzle, that we're dealing with that, are hard. It's hard to see. I also feel, too, that when we enable, sometimes we lie to cover up other people's behavior. So if someone's out of control, maybe you lie to others about their behavior. You kind of sweep it under the rug. A lot of times you find yourself almost in a parental role or in a counselor role or in a life coach role where, you're looking at it from different perspectives and allowing them to get away with some of this stuff, even though it's really not stuff that needs to be gotten away with. It needs to be stuff that's addressed. We're ultimately always putting their needs before ours. And one of the biggest things is just like helping them do things. We're doing things or taking things from them that they could do themselves. Very simple things. Living, cleaning, bill paying, errands, whatever it looks like. We end up jumping in and trying to take care of that. And that's a big deal that needs to be recognized. That's something that needs to be understood because when we're doing that, we are in full enablement mode. Okay. When we're helping somebody, we're allowing them to go through the process. We have some boundaries that we've created. We allow them to take control of their life. That's a big thing, allowing them to take control of their life, allowing them to get help. Sometimes in cases, refusing financial support is a big thing. You can keep throwing money at a situation. If it's not getting better, it's not getting better. We have to sit there and step back and say, okay, I keep enabling this, but I'm not helping. I'm actually hurting the person. and I'm getting in the way of their recovery, or whatever recovery it is. It doesn't have to be just drugs and alcohol. It could be the recovery of the fact that they need to go get a job. It could be recovering from entitlement. It can be, recovering from not believing in themselves enough to go back to school, or not believing in themselves not enough to go to that interview and try to get that job and try to work on themselves. All these things are very important aspects. And if we're with somebody that we're enabling, unfortunately, we're kind of on an imbalanced road. We're kind of on a slippery slope. We're teeter-tottering on a situation, and that is challenging. We're teeter-tottering on a situation that's not it's not equal ground, because anytime we're enabling somebody, we're giving them things that they're not giving to us, but we're giving them something and we're getting nothing in return. So we're giving them something, right? But we're not getting nothing in return. And if we are getting something in return, we're thinking that we're getting their love. Right? Are we getting their love? Is that what we're doing? And so some of you out there are enabling people, and you keep enabling and enabling. Are you getting love from them? Are you getting love from them? Is that what you're getting? Because I also think that enabling is, obviously it's lending money. It could be providing a home. It could be paying for a cell phone bill. It could be bailing out people out of jail. It could be paying their debts. It could be dealing with manipulation and abuse. That could be enabling too. It could be turning a blind eye. It could allow someone to get out of treatment. If somebody was in treatment, it could allow them to leave treatment and agree to them. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. You didn't finish it. You came back, but okay. That's okay. You're fine. Come on back in, and accepting that reality. And that's the problem, is that when we accept that reality, we're giving them a message that it's okay that they continue to do that because we're accepting it. As I've told many clients before, it's like, you got to really look at reality to some degree. I know that you love them and you care about them, but, you want them to get off the drugs, or you want them to get the job. But if you keep enabling them and bringing home and doing whatever they want you to do, you're making it very easy for them to continue to live the life they're living. You're making it very easy for them to do what they want to do, and they don't have any byproducts of negativity whatsoever. There's nothing. So why would they want to get up and do anything when you're making it very easy for them to continue status quo? And that's what I want you to think about. That's what I want you to understand, is that why are we allowing it to be so easy? Why are we allowing them to get whatever they want, or to do whatever they want? And that's very, very important for us to recognize. It's very important for us to understand. And that's what I think is something that we have to kind of grasp. I was talking about, in the last segment, I was talking about the differences, how to begin to know the difference between enabling and helping. And the first thing I had talked about was feeling good about it. Like, it's reciprocal. We feel good. It's like we're helping somebody, but we feel good about our help. They feel good about our help. We're not overstepping our boundaries. We're not doing things for them that they can do for themselves. We're really helping them to be more independent. And I think that's a great thing, is when we're allowing someone to be independent. Allowing that independency and helping them build on that independency is very important. I think that's one of the main keys, helping build upon independency and helping them see their value through the things that they can do, on their own. I think another indication is that you're helping them become more successful. So ultimately, you're helping them become more successful when you're helping and not enabling. When you're helping somebody, you're helping them become successful. When you're enabling them, you're actually allowing them to self-sabotage. You're allowing them to continue. For example, if you're in a toxic relationship right now and somebody is not being honest with you, or something's happening with you in that situation that's happening over and over again, and you know that, you have to let them know. And if somebody continues to say one thing or another, are you going to continue to allow them to manipulate and gaslight you, or are you not? But the thing is, ultimately, is that, you have to be right with yourself. I mean, this is not all about the other person. It's about what you're willing to accept and how to move on. And some people just do not know how to move on, and it will ruin their life if they can't move on. because they have to get right with what it is that they're holding on to. I've had clients that have held on to exes that don't even speak to them anymore. They don't even have contact with them anymore. And they're constantly holding on to that, holding on to their image, hoping to get that person back. And eventually you have to let that go, because that is just eating you up inside. There's nothing, that other person's already moved on. And that's painful. But, you can even enable somebody and not even still be speaking with them. Enabling what they're doing, enabling their situation. And I think also it's interesting, too, when we have enabled somebody, we look at the situation with different colored glasses, and I think that we try to see the best in the situation, but we really have to be honest and say, how often did you turn the blind eye? Were you really helping them be successful? What were you really doing? And what was the reason for it? Was because you wanted something? Because most of the time it's because we want something from them, right? We want their love or their support or their friendship, right? It's not just altruistic. There's something that you want. And I hate to say that too. I mean, it could be a family member. You want a family member's love. You want your mother's love. You want your father's love, right? It's not just, I'm just doing this for just to do it. It's because I feel like I have to do it. Enabling, when we enable somebody, we're at that point where we have to. We've already gone past we want to. Now we're at the have to. I have to. I got to do this. I have to do this. This is part of my responsibility. I have to take care of them. Nobody else will take care of them. This is my responsibility. This is my cross to bear. I think another indication to know the difference is that we're both helping one another. When you are helping someone, genuinely helping somebody, that other person is also providing or helping you to some degree. However, when we are enabling or we are being enabled, one person is helping the other, giving to the other, doing stuff for the other, and the other person's usually not. And so the other person is there, and the person that's enabling, maybe they get some value in the beginning off of doing these things, where it's buying like clothes or shoes or jewelry or money or taking care of, whatever that looks like. And in the beginning, it feels good, but you have to look at the background of why somebody's doing that. And usually that is a control factor too, because sometimes enabling, that has control that goes with it. Are you enabling this person to control them? That's a question. And not many of you aren't. Many of you don't want control, but some people are enabling, and a byproduct of that is control, because that person is being controlled by you because they're allowing themselves to be controlled by you. Do you get it? They're allowing themselves to be controlled by you, and you're controlling them because they're allowing it. Do you see what I'm saying? They're giving you the control, and whatever you're giving them, they're staying there, and they're allowing themselves to be controlled. And it's funny how they will turn around and say, you're controlling me, when in reality, at any moment they could leave. At any moment they could go to rehab and stop doing the drugs. At any moment they could go to rehab and stop drinking the alcohol. It takes time. I'm not saying it's an easy thing, okay? Addiction is a very tough and challenging thing and road to get over. But however, once it is gotten over, and it's an amazing feeling. And it's one of those very success stories we have. But if it's like a job, for example, if somebody's been enabled by money and they're not having to work and they don't have to go to work at all, and the other person's providing all the money for them, they could go out and get a job, but they've chosen not to. Now, I'm not talking about somebody that physically can't work, cannot leave their bed, those types of things. Okay, so remember, I'm not talking. It's not 100% all the time. I mean, if somebody is bedridden and unable to work, it's a different story. Okay, it's a different story. But what I'm talking about is if you're able-bodied and you're able to work and you can do things, getting a job, even if it's a part-time job, just even a little bit, it goes a long way to self-esteem. It goes a long way to growing that self-esteem. It goes a long way to not being controlled. And that's something that I think is very important for everybody listening, is like the last thing we want to do is being controlled by another human being. I mean, it's something to really understand and acknowledge and recognize when this is happening and how this is happening. It's very powerful. And so don't change the channel, because I'm still talking a little bit more about enabling and helping, and what to do if you figured out that you are enabling somebody. What do you do? What's your next step? What's the next step? How do we begin to turn the tides around? How do we begin to turn the tides around in this situation? That's powerful too, because, you've been doing it for so long and they're expecting it, and this has become part of your status quo. What do we do to rectify this? What do we do to change the situation How do we get out of it, and how do we move on? I got some tidbits of information, some nuggets of wisdom coming up, so don't change the channel. I hope that this topic is inspiring and also revealing for you as well. So stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I've been revealing the differences between enabling and helping and how to know the difference. And right before the break, we talked about feeling good about it. When you're helping somebody, you feel good about it. When you're helping somebody, you're helping them to be more successful. That's the difference. You're helping them to be successful, not self-sabotaging. It's a give and receive, and you're helping them build their independence. So what happens at this point if you realize that you were in the process of enabling someone else in your life, and now you realize, oh my God, I haven't been helping, I have been enabling. How do I switch the script? How do I change my ways? What do I do? How do I move on? And, those are some good questions, but it can be done. But the first thing is acknowledgement. First off, we acknowledge the fact that we've been enabling. Bingo. Second, okay, what have I been enabling them to do? Okay, I've been enabling them not to go out and get a job, and I've been financially taking care of them for the last 7 years. Or I've been allowing them to not go to rehab, and I've been allowing them to do drugs and alcohol in the household, even though it's very much upset me for a period of time. Whatever it looks like, it's happening. And so at this point in time, we have to get to the point where if it is the job, it has to be discussed. If it is the money that's dished out, you've got to pull back on those purse strings and see what's really happening. It's interesting, when we begin to stop enabling, we begin to see people's true colors a lot. We see people get very angry because it's no longer status quo. We are no longer giving them exactly what they want to be given, and that's very challenging for people to deal with. That's a very challenging place for people to be, and it's something that can be very hard on them because they want that. They need that. They want to have that enablement. They want to have that, and they see it as entitlement. They feel entitled. You've been doing this for as long as you've done. They feel entitled to the fact that you're doing it. They feel entitled to it. And that's something that we really have to address, because if somebody feels entitled to something, that's shockingly painful because they're going to expect it. And so this is going to be a very painful change in your life. Be prepared for that person to be very upset with you. Be prepared for that person to maybe cut you out. Be prepared for that person to call you names, controlling, mean, abusive, whatever they're going to use. Be prepared for that. You don't care. You're not there for me. Whatever it is, be prepared, because it will happen. And I want you to prepare yourself, because it can be very painful and shocking words, and it can be so painful and so cruel, and that's something that nobody really wants to ever deal with, and that's something that you have to think about. But you have to look at it and say, am I going to continue to enable this person for the rest of my life? And if it is drugs or alcohol or no job or whatever, not taking care of themselves, is it right that we keep enabling them? Is it right that we keep allowing this to be? Is it right that we continue to walk down this pathway? And, honestly, when we allow other people to self-sabotage themselves, even if they don't see it that way, we're actually allowing them, and we're actually aiding and abetting on them hurting themselves. And that's not good. When we aid and abet on someone hurting themselves, we're not doing anybody a service. And, I want you to think about that. Hey, there's no judgment here, but I want you to feel better and understand, okay, if I am enabling, I can change. I can stop whatever it is. If you're giving them XYZ, step back, think about it, have some conversations with them, let them know how you feel. They might not get it, but eventually you can stop enabling this. And maybe over time, they will find a solution. Because if we don't allow people to find their own solutions, they're never going to find it. If we don't allow people to do what they need to do to better their life, why should they do it if you're enabling them not to do it? This is something that needs to really be recognized and looked at. Something that you can actually control in your life. And so looking at that from that angle, am I helping or am I enabling? And if I'm enabling, let's see what I can do to stop the enablement, give this person back their independence, or allow them to find that independence, allow me not to be categorized as controlling or manipulative or abusive, and move on with my life. But also recognizing, was it ego? Was it because I wanted to keep them around? What was the reason why I was enabling them? Was it because I had a veil over that I was pretending and creating a false narrative as to who this person was? Or I wanted to believe so badly something different? All of these things are very important and need to be figured out. So there's both sides to this equation that matter. Check out the YouTube channel if you can. Go to my YouTube. Put in Ashley Burgess, Ashley Berges. New video content out every week. We love subscribers and we love to hear from you. I love to hear from you, and I try to answer as many comments and questions and respond as possible. So I would love to have you as a subscriber on the YouTube channel. Check out TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I appreciate you tuning in. New shows every week. You can check it out on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple. The list goes on. So stay tuned. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to live your true life and live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.